On the distant planet of Velmora, the royal palace stood tall and bright. Shining with silver walls and crystal towers, everyone in the empire knew about the royal family. But only a few ever spoke about the hidden one, the Scarred Princess, who had not stepped outside for many years. Princess Talira was once the pride of the empire. Her beauty, kindness, and deep wisdom had made her loved by many. But one day, everything changed. During a peace mission, her ship was attacked by an unknown force. She survived, but her body was burned and her mind left wounded. Strange dark scars covered parts of her skin, and her emotions became unstable. Since then, many tried to bond with her through the ancient ritual known as the joining. It was a mental and emotional connection that royal blood must complete to rule or marry. But Talira failed every time. The bond never formed. People began to say she was cursed. Even her own family didn't know how to help her anymore. They hid her from the world and gave up hope out across the stars. A young human man named Ben arrived on Velmora as part of a peaceful exploration program. He was not rich, not famous, and not a warrior. He was just kind, honest, and curious. He had studied alien cultures and loved learning about other worlds. When Ben first came to the palace, he noticed something odd. There were many rooms, many guards, but one wing of the palace was always locked. The air near it felt heavy, almost like sadness lived there. He asked one of the servants about it, but they warned him to stay away. That is where the cursed one lives, the servant whispered. Ben didn't laugh or act shocked. Instead, he asked again, more gently, "Who is she?" After some time, the old gardener told him the truth. The princess had been hurt, and no one could reach her heart. Some called her a monster. Others said she was lost. Ben didn't believe any of that. He believed no one should be locked away because of pain. "Can I meet her?" Ben asked. The gardener looked surprised. "They will never allow it." But somehow, the queen heard about Ben's strange request. She was amused. "Let him try," she said. "Maybe when he fails, he'll stop asking." And so, Ben was taken to the hidden garden, an old, quiet place where Talira spent her days alone. There were no guards nearby, only tall trees, soft grass, and a gentle fountain in the center. Talira sat near it, facing away from him, her long dark cloak hiding her form. Ben walked slowly, his heart pounding. He didn't know what to say. He sat on a stone bench a few feet away from her. Silence filled the air. "Why are you here?" Her voice was soft, almost broken. "I heard about you," Ben said kindly, "and I wanted to meet you, not the stories." She turned slightly, and he saw a glimpse of her face. One side was marked with dark lines like burnt crystal. Her eyes were sharp and golden, watching him with doubt. "You are not afraid?" "No," he said. "You should be. I break the bond. I ruin minds." "I don't believe that," Ben said. "I think you've been hurt, and I'm just here to talk." She didn't answer, but she didn't tell him to leave either. For the next few days, Ben came back to the garden. He brought her stories from Earth about the blue oceans, the trees that change color, the way people on Earth play music and dance under the stars. Talira listened quietly. Sometimes she asked questions. Other times she just watched him, as if trying to understand what kind of creature he was. On the fourth day, he brought her a flower. It was from a nearby hill, nothing rare, but its colors were soft and warm. She held it in her hands for a long time. "Why do you do this?" she asked. "You gain nothing." "Maybe I do," Ben said. "I get to talk to someone strong, someone brave enough to keep going even when the world gave up." She blinked. No one had called her brave for years. The next day, she gave him something in return, a tiny glowing crystal. It looked simple, but Ben saw how carefully she handed it to him. When he touched it, he felt something like a whisper in his mind, soft and warm. It was the first sign of a bond. No one had ever reached her that far. Tall Ira looked away. "You shouldn't have felt anything. It never works. Maybe this time it will," Ben said with a smile. And for the first time in years, Princess Talira smiled back, just a little, but real. After the day Princess Talira gave Ben the crystal, the palace started to whisper. Maids spoke in low voices. guards shared quiet glances, and the queen raised her brow when reports came in. A human had felt the bond spark with the scarred princess. It had never happened before. The Council of Elders didn't believe it. They said it must be a trick. Others thought Ben was lying. But the queen, curious and tired of years of silence, told them all to wait and watch. Ben continued to visit Talira in the hidden garden every day. He didn't bring grand gifts or ask strange questions. He just talked to her like she was a person, not a cursed being. Sometimes they sat in silence, listening to the fountain. Other times they laughed about strange earth customs or Velmoran traditions. Talira began to speak more. Her voice grew stronger. She even told him about her past, about how she once rode sky beasts, how she used to sing to crowds, and how she believed in kindness before the attack changed everything. They told me I was broken. She said one day that I would destroy anyone who got close. They're wrong, Ben said. You're still here. You're still trying. Talira looked down at the ground, her fingers playing with the crystal that glowed slightly now, even without being touched. You should be careful. If the bond becomes real, the pain will pass into you too. Then I'll carry it with you, Ben replied. His words were simple, but Talira felt them deeply. In another part of the palace, the royal council met in secret. The eldest noble, Lord Zarian, did not trust humans. This Ben is a risk, he said. The bond should not belong to an outsider. Another counselor agreed. If the bond completes, he will have influence. She may rise again in power. We cannot allow that. Zarian said, the people have forgotten her. We must not let her return. But the queen had other thoughts. Late one night, she visited her daughter's garden for the first time in years. She stood quietly at a distance, watching as Talira laughed softly at something Ben had said. It had been so long since she heard her daughter laugh. He has done more in days than all of us in years, the queen whispered to herself. The next morning, Ben was called to the chamber of light, a place where bonds were tested by ancient energy. Two royal priests waited for him. Talira stood near the edge, her cloak loose now, no longer hiding every scar. We're going to test the spark, one of the priests said. You may feel strange. Ben nodded. Talira placed her hand on the crystal altar. Ben placed his beside hers. At first, there was nothing. Then a soft hum. Light began to rise from the crystal. It swirled around them, warm and calm. In that moment, Ben felt her thoughts not as words, but as feelings: sadness, strength, fear, hope. Talira felt his calmness, his patience, his kindness. The light glowed brighter. The priest stared in shock. It's real, one said. The bond is forming. Talira pulled her hand back quickly. No, stop it. Ben turned to her, confused. What's wrong? You don't know what you're doing, she said, her voice shaky. If the bond finishes, you'll be tied to me forever, and I'm not safe. You're worth the risk, Ben replied. But Talira walked away. She didn't look back. For the next 2 days, Ben waited in the garden. Talira didn't come. He asked the servants. They said she was resting. He asked the queen. She only said, give her time. On the 3rd day, Ben left a small drawing on the bench, a picture of the garden with 2 figures sitting side by side. He didn't write anything. He just left it there and walked away. Hours later, Talira came. She saw the drawing and sat down. She touched the paper gently, then looked up at the stars. Inside the palace, Lord Zarian was angry. They're allowing this madness to grow, he said. If we don't act soon, the bond will complete. He began to gather support, others who feared what a human bond would mean. They planned to stop it before it went too far. Meanwhile, Ben stood on the edge of the palace roof that night, looking out at the glowing city. He wondered if he had pushed too far. Maybe Talira was right. Maybe she didn't want the bond. But then, he heard footsteps behind him. You left me a message, Talira said. Ben turned. I just wanted to say I'll still be there, even if you walk away. Talira stepped closer. She held out the crystal. I don't want to walk away anymore. The crystal glowed between them. Tall Ira stood under the moonlight, holding the glowing crystal between her hands. The soft hum coming from it was steady now, no longer flickering like before. Ben looked at her, surprised but calm. He didn't speak. He waited for her to say what was in her heart. I was afraid, Talira whispered. Not just for you, for me too. Ben nodded. I understand. It's not easy to trust again. You're the only one who didn't run away after seeing me. Her voice shook a little, and the first who made me feel like I was still me. She stepped closer and placed the crystal in Ben's hand. When his fingers touched hers, the energy between them pulsed. Warm light wrapped around their arms, and a soft breeze moved through the garden. Neither of them said a word. Their minds slowly opened to each other. In that moment, Talira saw flashes of Ben's memories, his home on Earth, his little sister, the quiet lake where he used to sit and think. She felt his calmness and quiet strength. Ben saw her memories to how she once sang to a room full of children, how she cried alone after the attack, how she stood in the rain one night, hoping the pain would wash away. It wasn't painful to share. It was peaceful. Ira pulled her hand back, breathing slowly. That was the first time I've ever felt safe inside someone's thoughts. Ben smiled. And you let me in. The bond wasn't complete, but something important had started. It was more than just energy, it was trust. The next day, word spread fast through the palace. The high priest confirmed it. A human had started a bond with the scarred princess. Many were amazed, a few were proud, but others were angry. Lord Zarian called a meeting of the royal council. This is dangerous, he said. If the bond becomes full, a human will have influence in royal matters. That must not happen. One of the younger counselors spoke up. But isn't this what we hoped for? Someone to reach her? Someone to help her return. Zarian's eyes narrowed. Not an outsider. Not him. They made plans to delay the next step of the bond. The ritual would be postponed. They told the queen it was for security reasons. But the queen already knew their fears. She didn't argue. Instead, she sent a message to Ben in secret. Do not stop. She needs you now more than ever. Ben met Talira again that night. They sat near the fountain, just like before. The moonlight made the scars on her face shine faintly like silver. But Ben never looked at them with fear, only with respect. They want to delay the bond, Talira said. They're scared of what you mean to me. Then we keep going quietly, Ben replied. We don't need their permission to care. Talira chuckled softly. You speak like an old soul. Or maybe just someone who listens. Each day that passed, their connection grew deeper. They began to hear each other's thoughts, not just feelings. It started with small things. Talira would think of a flower, and Ben would bring it without asking. Ben would feel nervous, and Talira would smile just to ease his mind. One afternoon, Talira showed Ben a hidden chamber under the palace. It was filled with old music stones. She placed one in a reader, and the room filled with soft tones. This was my favorite melody, she said. Ben closed his eyes. It sounds like home. For a moment, neither of them felt like outsiders anymore. They were just two souls, learning to heal. But danger was growing. Zarian had spies watching them. When he saw that their minds had begun to connect fully, he called his most trusted guards. Before the next moon, break them apart, he ordered. Use any reason. Call it safety. Call it tradition. I don't care. One of the guards hesitated. What if she resists? Then remind her of her scars, Zarian said coldly. Remind her she's still broken? Meanwhile, Talira didn't know about the threat. She only knew that something inside her had begun to feel whole again. I dreamed last night, she told Ben as they watched the stars. I dreamed I could lead again. You can, Ben said. And I'll be there. Talira touched her heart. Then I believe it. The bond was still growing. It was not yet complete. But the energy between them had never been stronger. But far across the palace halls, armored boots were already marching. The ones who feared the bond were coming. To break it before it was too late. The palace was quiet, but not peaceful. Shadows moved in the halls as the night deepened. The guards that Lord Zarian had secretly chosen wore dark armor and walked without sound. They were not sent to protect. They were sent to break. Meanwhile, Ben and Talira sat in the garden. Unaware of what was coming, Talira held the glowing crystal in her hand. It pulsed gently, a sign that the bond was almost ready for its final stage. But Talira's eyes looked worried. "They will try to stop us," she said softly. "Some think I'm still cursed, and now they fear you." Ben nodded. "Fear always tries to destroy what it doesn't understand." Talira gave a faint smile. "How do you always know what to say?" "Maybe because I'm really listening." She reached for his hand. The moment their fingers touched, a soft light wrapped around them again. It was warmer this time, stronger. They could feel each other's heartbeat. Their minds met again, more clearly than before. Suddenly, Talira gasped. Her mind showed Ben a memory he had never seen. She was a young girl, standing in the great hall, singing. Her voice was beautiful. Her father, the king, smiled proudly. It was a moment of pure joy. "You used to sing," Ben whispered. Talira nodded. "Before the scars, before the pain. Then maybe one day you'll sing again." The moment was soft, but danger was getting closer. The dark armored guards reached the outer edge of the garden. One of them lifted a small device Sid created, a pulse to weaken the bond energy. They planned to strike fast, take Ben away, and force Talira back into silence. But just as they moved, a royal priest stepped out from the shadows. He had been watching everything. "You will not touch them," he said, raising his hand. "We have orders," one guard replied coldly. "Those orders are not from the crown," the priest replied. "Step back." For a moment, tension filled the air. But the guards knew better than to fight a royal priest in public. They stepped back. But the message was clear. The threat was real now. The next morning, the queen summoned Talira and Ben to the Hall of Echoes, a sacred place where final bond tests were held. Only those truly connected could pass. Many had tried before. Most had failed. The room was round, with tall glass walls that shimmered like water. In the center was the bond crystal, larger than the one Talira had given Ben. It held the memory of thousands of past connections. "This is where your bond will be judged." The queen said, "If it breaks, you must not try again." Talira stood tall. "We are ready." Ben stepped beside her. Together, they placed their hands on the crystal. A wave of light spread through the room. At first, it was gentle. Then, the energy pulled at their minds, searching for weakness. Talira felt her past pain, every insult, every scream, every cold night alone. Ben felt it too. He saw how deep her hurt went. Then Ben's own memories were tested, his fear of losing people, his guilt over mistakes on Earth, his moments of doubt. Talira saw it all, but neither pulled away. They held onto each other's truths. A voice echoed through the chamber, not from a person, but from the crystal itself. "Do you accept all that the other is? Their past, their pain, their heart?" Talira answered first, "I do." Then Ben said, "Yes, always." The crystal shone bright gold. A symbol appeared on both their palms, glowing gently. It was the mark of a true bond. The priest, watching, dropped to one knee. The queen smiled. For the first time in years, Talira had passed the test. And it was with a human. But their moment of peace didn't last. As they walked out of the chamber, a loud noise shook the palace. Explosions. The council's hidden forces had made their move. Ben grabbed Talira's hand. "We need to run." But Talira didn't run. She turned around and faced the hall. "No, not anymore. I won't hide again." Energy began to form around her. Her eyes glowed with power not seen in years. The bond had awakened her royal gift. Something the attackers never expected. Ben stood beside her. "Then let's face them together." The guards rushed in, but Talira raised her hand. A wall of pure light blocked their path. She wasn't just bonded. She was rising again. The light around Talira burned bright and steady. It wasn't wild or angry. It was calm, controlled, like water flowing through her veins. For years, she had hidden her power, fearing she might lose control. But now, with Ben beside her, the bond had brought her strength back. The guards froze as the wall of light pushed them back. Their weapons failed to respond. Some fell to their knees, others backed away in fear. They had been told the scarred Princess was weak. They had not expected her to rise with such force. Ben stood beside her, watching quietly. They didn't know who they were messing with. Talira gave him a small smile. Neither did I. More guards poured into the palace halls, led by Lord Zarian himself. His face was full of anger, not fear. He raised his voice, speaking to everyone nearby. "This is not a bond, it's a trick." He shouted. "The human has corrupted our princess. She is unstable. This must end now." But the queen stepped forward. "No, Zarian. The bond has been tested, witnessed, accepted by the ancient crystal. Your lies end here." Zarian's eyes burned with rage. "She is dangerous. If we allow this bond to continue, it will break every law we hold sacred." Talira stepped forward. The golden mark on her palm glowed. And maybe those laws were wrong. Maybe they were made by those who feared change. Zarian pointed at Ben. "He's not one of us." "No," Talira said calmly. "He's better. He didn't care about my scars. He didn't care about power or status. He just cared about me." With a wave of her hand, the wall of light faded, but the energy around her remained strong. She wasn't hiding anymore. Zarian turned to his guards, "Rest them both." But none of the guards moved. They looked at Talira, at the queen, then at each other. They had seen the truth. The bomb was real. The princess was not cursed, she was healing. Suddenly, one of Zarian's own council allies stepped back. "This has gone too far," he said. "We were supposed to protect the empire, not destroy our future." Zarian's face twisted. He pulled a hidden weapon from his coat and aimed it at Ben. "Then I'll finish it myself." Everything moved fast. The weapon fired a pulse bolt. Ben tried to move, but he wasn't quick enough. Tal Iris screamed. Her power flared. The bolt stopped, in midair, frozen in golden light. But even as she blocked the attack, a small piece of the pulse broke off and hit Ben's side. He fell to the ground. "Ben!" Talira ran to him, holding him close. The wound wasn't deadly, but it hurt. Ben gritted his teeth, trying to stay awake. "I'm okay," he whispered. "Just stay strong." Tears fell down Talira's face, but she didn't panic. For the first time in years, she felt her full power, and she knew what to do. Placing her hands over Ben's wound, she whispered, an ancient healing chant, one she hadn't used since she was a child. Golden energy flowed from her into him. The wound began to close. Ben's breathing calmed. His eyes opened slowly. That felt warm. He joked weakly. "Don't scare me like that again," she said, half laughing, half crying. The crowd around them stood in silence. Many had never seen royal healing with their own eyes. It was a gift passed down only through the true bloodline, and now it had returned. Zarian tried to escape, but the guards stopped him. He was arrested for treason. The queen stood before everyone. "Let it be known, the scarred princess is not broken. She is strong. She is whole. And her bond with this human has restored what we thought lost." Cheers slowly filled the hall. The people bowed to Talira and Ben, not because of fear, but out of respect. Later that evening, Ben sat in the garden with a soft bandage on his side. Talira sat next to him, holding his hand. "You really almost got yourself killed," she said softly. "I told you I'd be with you," Ben replied. "No matter what." She leaned her head on his shoulder. "You didn't just bond with me. You brought me back." The garden was quiet again, but this time it was peaceful. Talira was no longer hiding in its shadows. The stars above glowed, brighter than ever. The news spread faster than light, across Velmora and beyond. Every world in the Empire heard about the bond between the scarred princess and the human. Some believed it was a miracle. Others thought it was a danger. But no one ignored it. In the capital's great cities, large screens showed images of Talira standing tall beside Ben. The golden bond mark on their palms proved everything. The broken princess was no longer broken, and the human who had healed her heart stood beside her, not as a stranger, but as someone chosen by fate. Many cheered. They danced in the streets. Artists painted murals of the garden where the bond had first sparked. Elders who once called Talira cursed now lowered their heads in shame. The royal priests declared the bond a turning point in the history of the stars. But far from the cheers, deep in space, not everyone was happy. Some powerful noble families saw the bond as a threat. To them, humans were still outsiders. They feared change, feared the power of a human who now stood beside royalty. Secret meetings began in the dark. Angry voices whispered of new laws, new control, new rules to keep outsiders from rising too high. Inside the palace, Talira stayed close to Ben. His wound was healing well. The queen had given him a special room near the heart of the royal Tower of Still. Guards kept a close watch, half to protect him, half to keep an eye on him. Ben didn't complain. He knew trust had to grow. Tal Ira, however, had changed. She was no longer quiet, no longer unsure. She stood in the royal court once again, dressed in royal colors with her scars visible. She didn't hide them anymore. They were part of her story. We must not fear the future, she said during one meeting. Change is coming. Let us lead it with open hearts. Some nodded. Some remained silent. But none dared speak against her now, not after what she had shown them. One day, Talira and Ben walked through the palace gardens together. Flowers were blooming. Birds were singing, and the sky was clear. But Ben noticed something different. In Talira's eyes, "You're thinking deeply," he said. "I'm thinking about the next step," she replied. "The bond is real, and our people know it. But we need more than feelings. We need action." "What kind of action?" he asked. "We open the gates," she said. "We invite others, those who have been rejected like I was, those from far away, worlds who want peace. We make the palace a home not just for royalty, but for the forgotten." Ben smiled. "You're going to change everything." "Not alone," Talira said. "With you." Soon after, Talira sent messages across the empire. She called for peace talks, for new alliances. She invited scholars, warriors, and healers from different planets. She even invited human leaders from Earth. The palace began to fill with new faces. Humans and aliens sat at the same tables. They shared stories, ideas, and dreams. The bond between Talira and Ben became a symbol of hope. But in the shadows, few still plotted. A small group of nobles, angry and afraid, gathered one final time. "She's rebuilding the empire in her image," one growled, "with that human at her side. We'll be forgotten." "Then we must act," another said, "before the final ceremony. For in just 2 days, the last stage of the bond was plan the heart fusion, a rare ceremony that would fully tie their minds and spirits forever. Once complete, no council could break their bond. Not even death could undo it." The traitors planned to strike during the ceremony, but Talira was ready. She had seen it in a dream: fire in the palace, fear in the air. And in that dream, Ben stood between her and danger. Again, she couldn't let it happen. "We'll be prepared," she told him that night. "No more surprises." Ben nodded. "Whatever happens, we face it together." And as the sun set over the glowing towers of Velmora, the people waited in excitement. Lanterns floated in the air. Music echoed through the streets. For the first time in years, the empire felt alive again. But the traitors were also ready. They had one last chance to break the bond, and they would stop at nothing. The palace shone with golden lights as the final ceremony began. Thousands gathered outside the gates, while leaders from many worlds filled the great hall. The air was filled with hope, and everyone waited to see the moment when the human and the scarred princess would complete their bond. Tal Ira stood in the center of the hall, wearing a long robe with silver threads. Her scars were uncovered, glowing softly under the lights. Ben stood beside her, dressed in simple clothes, but the bond mark on his palm was bright and strong. The queen sat on her throne, proud and quiet. The royal priests stood in a circle, holding the bond crystal, the same one that had tested their connection before. It was time. The head priest raised his voice. "Today, we witness the final joining of two souls. Their minds have shared truth. Their hearts have passed trials. Now, their spirits will become one." Talira and Ben placed their hands on the crystal. Light flowed around them. The symbol on their hands stretched up their arms, glowing brighter and brighter. Then suddenly everything changed. A loud crash echoed through the hall. Smoke burst. From the back entrance, screams filled the room. The traitors had arrived. A group of masked nobles and soldiers ran into the chamber, weapons in hand. Their goal was simple: stop the bond, destroy the crystal, and take control. Protect the bond. The queen shouted. Royal guards jumped in, blocking the attackers. The crowd panicked. Some running, others ducking for cover. One of the traitors rushed toward the crystal with a glowing blade. Ben stepped in front of it. The blade struck his shoulder, and he fell. Ben, Talira screamed. The light from the bond flashed like fire. Energy exploded from her body, knocking the attacker backward. Her eyes burned with power. She rushed to Ben's side. He was bleeding, but conscious. Finish the bond, he whispered. Not without you, Talira said, holding his hand tightly. The traitors charged again, but the people didn't run this time. They stood up. Even the guests from other worlds began to fight back. A group of human visitors formed a shield wall. Alien leaders used defense tools and ancient skills. The bond had become more than just between two people. It had become a symbol. Talira closed her eyes. She placed her hand on Ben's chest. The bond crystal rose into the air, floating above them. The symbols glowed so bright that even the traitors froze. A voice echoed through the hall. Not the priest's voice, not Talira's or Ben's. It was the voice of the bond itself, ancient and powerful. True hearts, true minds, united forever. Light wrapped around them both. Ben's wound closed. The crystal melted into dust, its energy flowing into their bodies. The final bond was complete. The traitors fell to the ground, not from any attack, but from the power of the bond itself. Their weapons stopped working. Their anger turned to fear. They were arrested and taken away. Silence filled the hall. Then the queen stood. Let it be known across every star: the bond is complete, and the empire is reborn. The crowd cheered. People cried. Some simply stood in awe. Later that night, the garden glowed with gentle lights. Ben and Talira sat together on the same bench where they had first met. Everything felt peaceful again. Do you still think you're broken? Ben asked. Talira shook her head. No, I think I was just waiting to be seen. You were always strong, he said. And you, she smiled, were always foolish enough to sit next to a scarred princess. Guess I like danger, Ben joked. Talira leaned her head on his shoulder. Then let's be dangerous together. Days turned into weeks. The empire changed. Humans and aliens worked side by side. Schools opened for mixed species. Old rules were replaced with new ones built on understanding and hope. Talira became known as the Light of Velmora, not because she had power, but because she chose love over fear. And Ben, he was called the Bond Bringer, but he never liked titles. He just liked sitting in the garden with the one person who had changed everything. Their story became legend. But to them, it was just the beginning of something beautiful.